Let's talk about another theme about pissing off big daddy government in the United States. I'm learning this as I re-educate myself on the United States history. As you can see from my comment, I was raised in the South. Public education wasn't great, even though I had the best AP US history teacher in town. There's so much more to learn. So, this theme is just being a woman, challenging the status quo in any form or fashion. And I mean that quite literally. And when you start to add any version of intersectionality on top of that, whether that is race, religion, disability, sexual preference, etc., things get worse. And the way the government reacts to it is using broad, sweeping laws like the Comstock Acts, the Alien and Sedition Acts, and that is so that they can make an example to other women. Shall we talk about a few? Okay, let's go in the way back machine and start with the Salem witch trials and Anne Hutchinson. Salem witch trials, we're not burning witches, we're burning women. Women who are probably just doing their own thing, living their life, right? Anne Hutchinson starts preaching, and that's a problem, not just for the government, but also for the male preachers. And people like her, they come to her house, so she gets charged with not just heresy, but sedition. She gets banned from the Massachusetts Bay Colony. Now, I've been doing some reading, and as we move, through the ages, we get into the 1800s, and Madame Restell is one of my favorites. So the reason why I didn't call my last video Mutual Aid, which is what the majority of the video was talking about, is because I was also talking about Madame Restell. She is a physician, air quotes. She's not a physician, but she claims to be a physician. She provides women's health services. She will claim to give out over 100,000 abortions in her lifetime as a doctor. That's 40-ish years. Now, she has a sliding scale. You can show up and be the poorest person, you can show up and be the richest person. Like Anne Hutchinson, though, she broke into a pretty much male-dominated field. Unlike Anne Hutchinson, she charged rich people a lot and made a lot of money. So that was a second layer of what was making people mad, right? Because this is a time when women can't own property, and she builds herself a mansion on Fifth Avenue. If you want her full story, you can go over to my YouTube. It is very poorly edited, but it's there. She brings the ire of Anthony Comstock and is the first person to be charged under the Comstock laws, I believe. She might not actually be charged under them. She might be charged under their first version of them. But the Comstock laws are what we're using today to make sure that people cannot ship birth control back and forth. Anthony Comstock makes talking about getting an abortion illegal. You cannot share information about it, the USPS, because he's an USPS special agent. You can't share it, right? Obviously, during this same time, we have abolitionists and like Sojourner Truth and Harriet Tubman. And Harriet Tubman, not just rich people in the South, but the government also puts massive bounties on her head, because not only is she really good at what she does, she's a firm believer, and she is a ghost, and people cannot understand how she gets in and out of the South and just is building this network of the Underground Railroad as she goes, right? Whew. Then we move into our early 20th century. We're talking suffragettes. We're talking Margaret Sanger. We're talking Emma Goldman. Margaret Sanger plans Planned Parenthood, right? She'll go to prison numerous times. As we move through the 20th century, Ethel Rosenberg is put to death for sedition. That's an example, right? During the Cold War, we're making an example out of this woman. Her husband might have actually been trading secrets. She might have actually been trading secrets, but putting a woman to death at that point in time was not something that happened all the time. As we move into the civil rights era, we've got Angela Davis. This book talks a lot about the Black Panthers in New York City. So Afeni Shakur, Tupac's mom, Angela Davis. We also have the Women of All Red Nations. That's founded by 4 indigenous women in 1974. 3 out of those 4 have scuffles with the law left and right, because some of them are at the Wounded Knee occupation, and the 3rd out of the 4th is just harassed for the rest of her life. Rosa Parks, harassed for the rest of her life. The FBI follows her for the rest of her life. So yes, women challenging the status quo in any shape not just draws ire from the government, but of course, obviously, from around a large percentage of our population, right? There are about 50% cisgendered men in our population, and up until very recently, almost all 50% fucking hated the fact that women were taking men's jobs. They hated the fact that women were infiltrating men's industries, whether that is preaching or practicing medicine or law, like RBG, right? She's got a lot of issues, but she put up a lot of shit. These people, over the course of our history, in the United States, these women specifically did things knowing that they might get put in prison and they might be put to death and they might be exiled or have to be choosing to exile themselves, go to Cuba and sit there and refuse extradition. And they still fucking did it. They did it without cell phones and they did it without, like, yeah. Whatever you think you know about U.S. history, it's so much worse.